simplicity, suitability, and safety. Firstly, simplicity. Our monorail system has a very simple structure. Because of this feature, the monorail system blends in well with the surrounding environment. The entire system, including building and civil engineering processes, can be completed in a short period of time. As a result, it ensures excellent cost performance. Secondly, suitability. The monorail system is suitable for an urban transportation development project in any location. Hitachi monorail system easily adopts steep slopes and curves of small radiuses, allowing for a highly flexible line alignment planning. Its transportation capacity can be adjusted according to characteristics of each area that it serves. In addition, it features low noise levels and superb ride comfort, ideal for a new urban transportation system. Thirdly, safety. Hitachi straddle-type monorail system has a non-accident operation record since 1964, attesting to its great safety and reliability. The system has safety-assured cars and a highly reliable control system. In addition to the three S's, simplicity, suitability, and safety, realized through Hitachi's original technology expertise, we provide full support in all phases of the transportation development project, from planning, design, construction, and manufacturing to operation and maintenance. Our aim is to make a full contribution to enhancing urban convenience and comfort.
Welcome to session 3, and this I think is the most everybody is waiting for. The session is waiting for because everybody is getting caught in traffic jams, morning, evening, and now of course throughout the day. So I think this is something transportation is something we experience every day. So I'm not going to make. And this is also a big panel. We have some of the country's best experts, as well as region's best, and we also have a Guido who has over 20 years of experience in transportation. I just want to remind you once again, some people requested, inquired where they can find this presentations. On lbo.lk/summit. It may not be accessible sometimes through the mobile app. But the website is mobile friendly. It's lbo.lk/summit. You will see a tab for presentations. So all the presentations are there. You can also post your questions and comments either on the mobile app, either through website, or use your mobile phone SMS. So those are the options. So keep sending your questions. Unfortunately, we will not be able to respond to all the questions due to the time limitations, but we will try to send whatever the questions, remaining questions, unanswered questions for our specialists, so their comments. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to hand over session to Gaini. Please welcome the speakers. Put your hands together and welcome the speakers. So we'll go till 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Lakshman. It's a very, very heavyweight panel. And I'm really privileged to chair this session, Lakshman. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Like Mayor of Bogota, Mr. Penaloza said, a country is developed not when the poor ride in cars, but when the rich use of the public transport. So I would say Sri Lanka, should be a day when our politicians get into the private transport so that we can take a whole lot of cars out of the road, and we will get out of that, yeah? Right. Okay, so I would like to invite Guido to take on the stage and do the first keynote session. You have 15 minutes, Guido, yeah?
I will try. Good morning, everybody. I am sure you will understand that why, what, how is not a Vietnamese noodle dish, but it is about our world-class transportation system. And that's about why we need it, what actually does it mean, and how we can achieve. And I was actually thinking about a slide to show how important transport is in your city and the effect on it. And I thought, well, let's start with a question. And the question is, what if in the future 20,000 more people will travel daily by car to Colombo and park here? The answer is that you'd require a 63 football fields of space for parking. Maybe I should see 50 cricket fields. Anybody who knows where I can find this 50 cricket fields in the city center to park these cars are welcome to talk to me in the lunch break. What's going on, and this is not something for Colombo, but we see in many cities in the world, is a kind of deadly cocktail. It's growing car ownership, a failing transport system, and a weak urban planning. And that becomes a deadly cocktail if we are not able to manage. And there are many cities also here in the region who are struggling to deal with it. It's also one of the biggest problems, for example, the continent of Africa is facing. Transportation is like the blood circulation in your body. If the traffic stops flowing, your city will die. Because I'm very impressed by the cinema life, but my first question is, will people ever be able to reach it? Will it be accessible? So we have to think about it. It's nice to build this kind of things, but if you don't think how it will be accessible, then it creates maybe a problem. In a global world, look at the ranking of cities in all kinds of tables. Only cities with a good transportation system are valued by people, by investors, as an attractive place to live, work, and doing business. I think it has already arrived here, also in Colombo, that building roads is not the solution. It's not sustainable, not attractive, not affordable. But transportation remains the pivot for your city development, because it's the way we move around, we plan our cities, we build it. It's part of everybody's daily life. Everybody has to transport every day again to wherever it is, for example, to this conference. So in the end, it's also about quality of life. It's about quality of the city and your future. So urban transport system should be at the heart of the development strategy for any city. You have to be clear, this is how we develop the city, and this is how your transport system is going to build. And there's a very simple credo. It's like a better transport means a better city, and a better city means a better life and a better business. And actually, this is a simple statement. This may be, I would say, a smart statement. And if we talk about smart, we talk about smart cities. I'm not always sure if everybody knows what is a smart city. I saw a question asking what is a smart. I give you a few definitions from a smart city, what I think is a smart city. Well, a smart city is a city where people and businesses are happy to live and work. I think the word smart should be more linked to the word happy. That sounds strange, and I'm not from the soft side of the world, but it has something to say about it. A smart city is a city where urban planning and urban transport are strictly linked to each other. But probably the nicest definition, also applicable maybe to Sri Lanka, a smart city is a city where the government takes its responsibility to organize the transport system in an efficient and sustainable manner. That is, I think, also a smart city, and that's also at the end, a smart government. It has been mentioned, but this is a very interesting, and we heard everybody's now, I think, the most phrased sentence in the transport world at the moment, where we see so many countries moving from a developing country to a developed country, and a developed country is not the place where the poor have cars. it's where the rich use public transport. Or as my Minister of Transport in the Netherlands always come by bicycle to the parliament, and sometimes the president, the prime minister does. In cities like Singapore, Hong Kong, London, Paris, 60–80% of the trips are made by public transport. So otherwise these cities will not function. So at least there is one positive thing you could take over from Singapore, and that's getting the share of public transport. But much more interesting is this 60–80% of trips made by public transport. These people who travel has every day the choice, shall I take my car or shall I take public transport? Because out of this 60–80%, most of them are in the position of a car, but they leave their car at home and travel by public transport. Okay, said enough. Some building stones for a good transportation system. I'm not presenting you a blueprint for Colombo, but I present you some food for thought to think about. And I had a lot, but I pick up a few points. A world-class transportation system. What it is? It's firstly, it is attractive. It's accessible for everybody. It offers satisfying travel time every day. It's stress-free. Don't forget that transport is something related to stress, either in your car, in a congestion, or in a bus. It's comfortable, it's safe, secure, and last but not least, the system should be customer-oriented. We forget that the transport system has users, and in fact, they are just customers of the system. It should be efficient in terms of use of space, urban planning organization. Your investment should be cost-effective, operations and maintenance, and at the end, it should deliver value for money and value for the community. Sustainable, related to environment, promotes public transport, walking and cycling, reduces the emissions, pollutions and noise, but it should be also sustainable, financially sustainable, and affordable for those who travel. And at the end, it's mentioned again and again, it's contributed to the quality of life of your city. I will go to 12 issues I have picked out of 35 elements of what makes a world-class transportation system, and I will try to go quickly through them. At number 1, we have world-class systems using space efficiently. A car lane has a capacity of 1,500 people per hour. And that's not so much. A bus lane, 9,000. So please adapt this picture. Never forget that one bus lane has the same capacity of 6 car lanes. So if you have the choice to make a decision and your space is scarce, then the decision is easily made. You don't need to have a PhD to come to that conclusion. And and it's easy to explain. If you don't believe me, look at this picture. All these people, if they move from their car into the bus, you can see what space you will save. Or the other way, if all these people leave the bus and jump into their car, you understand how congestion will emerge. And that's why this principle is applied worldwide by introducing bus lanes, creating bus rapid transit system where you create actually bus lanes. And it's attractive in travel time, but it's also efficient, because if you from 10 kilometers to 20 kilometers in your public transport network, you need half of the vehicles and half of the personnel, half of the cost. Transport excellent cities, they understand that there is a financial benefit by investing in sustainable transport. Car-oriented cities like Houston and Sydney actually invest 2 times more, about 12% of their urban local GDP in transport. Cities who have public transport well organized, that's only 6%. So there is a benefit actually for your local economy. Access to jobs. car-oriented cities like Houston and Melbourne, it takes about an average 60 minutes to reach 500,000 jobs. Where in comparison, cities like Singapore and Munich with excellent transport systems, it takes only 25 minutes to reach 500,000 jobs. Transport-oriented development, it's said again and again, but both need each other because you need high-density corridors to serve public transport, to make public transport efficient. And fail to plan is planning to fail. One of the best examples is the city of Curitiba in Brazil. You see in the middle a well-developed bus rapid transit system. It could be also a metro, it could be also a light rail, but that's the public transport corridor. And when they made this corridor, they also made the highest density along this corridor. A good example. And don't forget, if we talk, well, we refer a lot to Singapore. This is 40 years of meticulous planning, rigid planning, always related to urban planning and urban transport in combination. And that's why they have a combined land and transport authority. It's integrated. Number 4, cities with an excellent transport city, they have excellent, clean, attractive, modern and safe rolling stock. And it's time to also for cities in some countries to think about, we have to make an upgrade. If you want to attract people from a car, you have to raise your standard in terms of quality. Cities with world-class systems have high-quality transport systems to provide smooth transport between transport modes. Interesting is that it sometimes also has a function as a kind of urban generation about the areas around, because bus stations are often at a little bit the shady edges of a city, and it can really lift some parts of the city. Any modern city nowadays has an integrated e-ticketing system. Even the capital of Kigali in Rwanda, I can travel with an e-ticketing system. So it's nothing complicated. Every week we have a few cities, we join the party. And I was even in Siberia last week and came across it. So it's one ticket. It's one ticket for any mode of transport regardless. You can even pay your parking for it. It's convenient for the passenger, efficient from the operator because he gets rid of all the cash money. Excellent transport system has world-class transport information. And access to transport information is a starter for those who want to use the system. We have websites, mobile applications, travel planners, updates on traffic situation. It's key and it really transformed. As some people say, the biggest invention in public transport of the last 20 years was the smartphone. And it's very interesting to think about that. Excellent transport systems have professional transport operators who run the system. They're professional, well-managed companies. They operate on the service contracts with the transport authorities. They are selected on the basis of international tenders, and they have to adhere strict and to quality standards and KPIs. Excellent transport systems have systems where commuter rail play an important role. And it's great because outdated rail systems falling apart can be upgraded to a modern commuter rail system. And I find, I was a month ago in Buenos Aires, I was extremely impressed. This system was falling apart. It had the level of service maybe we can imagine here in the region. And it was upgraded in 2-3 years, and they created a world-class commuter rail system with excellent new trains. About globally competitive city. Any city what takes themselves serious has a fast, direct and comfortable rail link that connects the airport with the city. You arrive at the airport and you want to be in 15 minutes maybe 20 minutes. You want to be in the heart of the city. A must for any world-class transportation system. Parking, often forgotten. The parking meter was invented in 1935, so we celebrate the 80 years of a parking meter. Not sure if it has already arrived after 80 years here in Colombo. Doesn't matter, but paid parking will regulate both space and mobility. And it most important aspect of parking is also it generates revenues. We talk about funding, we talk about financing. My little city, Amsterdam, with less than 1 million people, we generate about $170 million a year from parking. And all this money is reinvested in transport. They cannot use it for anything else. It's getting the money in and reinvested, and it starts to generate. There is a lot to say about transport and public space, but that's one of the big trends that transport has to do with public space. And that's why we promote sustainable transport. And we see green cities, priority pedestrians, and promoting sustainable transport. It means that you have to think about your city center. We see every day more cities which close their roads in the city center and make it pedestrian areas. The businesses always complain. And afterwards we say, why didn't we do it earlier? Because it makes our city nice and we have so much more visitors in our shops or opening their waterfront. And it means also space for green transport. Look at the pictures below how easy a city can be transformed if you transform actually road space into public space. My last part is actually about how to achieve such excellent system. And the experience is the lessons learned from other cities is that the end is not so much a matter of technology or money. Don't worry, they will come. But at the end, it's a matter of vision, leadership, making choices. It's about organization, management, expertise, innovation. And at the end, sorry, but it's just hard work to get such a system in place. Actually, if you start with the latter part, I mean here, money will come. There is abundance of money, but there's a lack of good plans. That's what I experience. Final part, third part, before I will finish, is actually why some cities do better than others. Why we have a good class and a not so good class. So what is the secret behind successful transportation systems? It turns out that in the end, it's the organization of your transport is the key success factor, not the availability of money, not the technology. It's the organization. And all these successful cities has one thing in common. There is only one entity responsible for the development and organization of urban transport. We know all this land transport in Singapore, we know in Paris, we have the STIF, we know in London, but in so many cities. If you take the first 25 good functioning cities in the world ranking, also in financial terms, they all have a transport authority in place, without any exception. So the transport is an entity. I give you an example from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. 10 years ago, they had a huge master transportation plan. And that was also a little bit related to the land use plan. That was around 2000, 2005. It was a good plan. It never, ever took off. Nothing happened. There was no implementation, no execution. And that was because the organization was too fragmented. Probably the letters are a little bit small. If you don't understand, don't worry. The government themselves also didn't understand how it worked. So don't worry. So one day, and I think it was the Prime Minister who said, enough is enough. And in one day, that was happened. Get rid of all this fragmented organization and make one entity accountable It's an important word, accountable. If you have a fragmented organization, there is always a reason why someone is not accountable. So this is how it works, and they created the Land Transport Authority. I think they go in 3-4 years, 50 places up in their ranking, because every month I read about new rail, commuter rail, the BRT's improvement, the e-ticketing system, the taxi industry they reorganized. Suddenly it started to work because there was only one entity there. So it's one entity, it does roads, public transport and rail, and some of these authorities does also parking, and they do also land use. And they do the development, the organization, management, project implementation, financing, contracting, planning, coordination, and information. Very simple. Everything what has to be related to transport is done. So they have also authority over railways. So they cover a lot. They sign the contracts. They are leading in the development and the project implementation and being held very much accountable against strict planning. Some more, how they did it. So I mentioned the well-organized transport authority. But transport systems which were successful started with vision and commitment. There has to be leadership. This is the direction. We need a champion. And in nearly any place, that's the mayor of Bogota or the mayor in London, and he said, we go that direction, and this is the system we want. We cannot wait. Political will. Sometimes political competence is more important than political will. Well-defined goals and strategy. You have to be clear. We want in 2025, we want 50% of our people travel by public transport. We want in 2030 reduce our CO2 emissions in our city with 50%. And you have to need clearly goals, and you have a strategy to achieve. Strict implementation planning. As we all see in a lot of cities, the weakest link is the execution and the implementation. I have seen so many offices where the shelves came down because they were so piled up with reports. But that's not so difficult to fill your shelves. It's about the implementation and execution. We need supportive appropriate legislation. For example, often the public transport legislation is a motor vehicle act from the 1950s. We are now living in 2015. The world is changing, so that has to be changed. Just as the telecommunication has changed, as we don't use every day our telegraph anymore, there is something like internet. We need sound financial arrangements. That's absolutely clear. Otherwise, it will not work. But be sure that all these countries manage that. And I mentioned that it can reduce actually the amount for your GDP. It has their benefits, and we should take also take in account the benefits in terms of reducing travel time and access to education, to jobs, to housing, etc., as a benefit in terms of value of time. Human resources and expertise. You need sufficient human resources and expertise. Yeah, it's a little bit shocking, but when they started a transport authority, the first thing they was getting 500 best experts together to run the whole thing. This is not something for a few people. This is something where you have to work. And this is not a commission which is drinking tea. It's an authority who has to deliver and execute projects. So we have professional transport companies. It was already mentioned. We have support from international advisors. That's what also a lot of I see now in Dubai and Singapore. They have always tried to find international advisors who can pick out the best things around the world to help them to do the system, because they cannot do it alone. Will Colombo either succeed or fail? That's my last slide. It's a challenge. I don't know. I only know that you have a choice. You're on a crossroad, and it's up to you to decide if you want to be in the left table ending up or in the right table. You can learn from Jakarta and Manila. They had really nice plans, but they are still, after 15 years, talking about the law on the transport authority, because after 15 years, it still has not passed the parliament. And since then, nothing is happening. So it's really a serious issue. Think about this 62 football fields you otherwise maybe need. So my final slide is about, in a global world, cities acknowledge a good transportation system is key to making the cities attractive and competitive, and making a nice and attractive city. Transportation, it's about the quality of the city. It's the quality of your city. It's about making choices. And it's about the future of your city. Your city, Colombo, which is a really pleasant and nice city. So don't spoil it. And I hope you really manage to make the right choices to create a nice city for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guido. Although you took a little bit more, I think it's worth it. Now I would call upon Professor Amal Kumarage to take the stage. I think he's a strong advocate of public transport in this country, and you've heard a lot from him about what our vision should be, and let's hear from him now.
Thank you, Gaini. Good morning to everybody. I think from last evening, speaker after speaker has been highlighting the case for public transport being the transformative element in making Colombo a globally competitive city. And I think Guido, in his excellent presentation, brought in the best of world knowledge of how this can be done and has been done from cities across the world. So we have clearly two options now. To go the way that many cities have gone, particularly we see in East Asia, or to take the smart option of what those cities have also discovered after loitering in the wilderness of traffic congestion and building urban expressways for 20, 30 years, that there is no solution other than public transportation to build world-class cities. So Guido asked the question, how do we get there? Now, in terms of looking at the transport challenges for Colombo, we need to determine what kind of city do we need to build. How big a city do we need to build? At the moment, 1 million people come here during the daytime. Do you want to make it 2 million, 5 million? Or do we want to empty it? Well, traffic congestion will certainly do that for us. Then we have two options. We can make it a ghetto where the poor live, or as Nana put it eloquently, a playground for the rich. Is that what we want Colombo to be? And I don't think we will create a globally competitive city that way. It's good to talk about the megapolis and the polycentric cities. But what is the role of Colombo? What kind of economic activity, social activity should remain in the center? And how should the center be connected to all the other satellite developments? And these are key decisions that we have to take. Okay, we can create a bigger city, and I think we need to create. Colombo can accommodate maybe 2 million people in my estimation. But more people means our roads will get slower. It's not just more people moving in, but we need to move them faster than the current speed of 12 kilometers an hour within the city. We need to bring it up at least to 20 kilometers to be even considered a globally competitive city. At the moment, our people in the Western province travel 10 kilometers on average. That is low. But if we have polycentric cities, I'll assure you that'll increase. Maybe we will move faster, but we will be spending more time on our roads. So we need to look at a hybrid situation where we have polycentric, monocentric, and we need to have a situation where we move from the very outdated system we have to a more manageable and sustainable system. And transportation is going to be the key of providing that sustainability of the structure. So I hope that the megapolis plan will take into account all of these things and get the right transportation expertise that is available. The third thing is that we need choice. People in a smart city want to walk. They like to cycle. They like to take the bus or the train, depending on where they're going to. Not only be stuck in a car or stuck on a sidewalk or on a bus. We must be able to give them multimodal transportation solutions. We talked about livability. We need to make the time spent inside transportation pleasant, sociable. We need to spend time outside transportation pleasant. We live in a country blessed with so much of natural vegetation and climate. But how many of us living in this part of the country get a chance to enjoy it? To walk and breathe clean air, to hear silence? Those are all aspects that have been robbed from us gradually. So livability means creating a city where these things we have and have lost can be reintroduced and preserved. And I think that will go a long way in creating the wealth for our city. Also, a city, as Guido did mention, needs to be economically efficient. Right now, 12% of what we earn in the Western province goes towards mobility. Goods, people, the time spent, fuel, vehicles, 12%. And efficient cities like Singapore are doing it 5%. The USA across the board is doing it at 5 or 6%. And no country can ever dream of even dreaming about becoming a logistics hub unless we maintain it in the single digit. And if we do nothing, our studies show we are heading towards 24% by 2020. And that will definitely not make us a globally competitive city. So we need to create reliability on which lifestyles, particularly of the young, can be built. They don't want waiting for this and that. They want instant information. They want to be connected to the online systems. And we need this kind of modern transport systems. So this is the challenge that is facing us in Colombo. Can we get there? Now, the past few days, many people have been asking me about traffic because I said something to the media that in 2020, if we do nothing, the traffic speeds will come down to 6 kilometers an hour. Aha, now it has got many people thinking. Maybe they want to get that bicycle out or maybe get the running shoes out and then walk to work. Yeah, you've got enough time to practice. But let's see whether we can avoid that. So people tell me, how can we get rid of this traffic congestion? Traffic congestion is only a symptom. It's like having a brain tumor and treating it with Panadol. In the early days, maybe you can get by with it and carry on. But there is a time where we have to do something more serious than that. We have lost urban space. We have lost the quality of life. We are spending nearly 500 billion rupees annually on importing vehicles. And the banks are very happy to lend you money to buy that. Now, isn't that investment supposed to go into productive things like manufacture or agriculture? Or why in transport? Or something we actually should be consuming less and less and less in order to be efficient. So we've got it all wrong. And these are the symptoms that are alarming, which tells us the patient needs surgery. Why is this? Because we are becoming richer, we are becoming a middle-class country, a middle-income country, and this is happening the world over. It is because we do not have the land that some countries have in urban areas to keep widening our roads indefinitely. We've got to realize that. We have allowed our public transportation to deteriorate. We have created an image that public transport is for the poor, and that what we can do is to get out of that by at least a bicycle or a car, even get into debt and get on the road and provide our own transport. And this is the social message, the political message, even sometimes professionals have been talking about. And this is why we have very poor transport policy, a disconnect between land use, transport. We keep on building highways and tell people that one-way systems and flyovers and traffic signals are going to solve the problem, and it hasn't, and it won't. So how do we go ahead? I think the first thing, and I'm beginning to have hope after 20 years of campaigning for public transportation, that people are beginning to understand. And I think this is where even this seminar is of paramount interest for all of us to become missionaries with this message. And I was so happy that speaker after speaker kept mentioning that public transport is the foundation for a competitive city. We need to take this out to make political convictions. Sometimes we blame politicians. Politicians only represent the people. If the people want to travel in their cars and sit in traffic, we will get roads. If we, as a people, as academics, as a business community, as the media, if we say, no, let's look around and we see world-class cities built on modern 21st century public transport systems, politicians will ask for it. And I think it's time that we stop blaming politicians and start demanding what is good for us through them. We need to have increased investment in high-quality urban transport. We spent 4% of our GDP on building highways in this country for the last 10 years. I think that's about a world record, believe me. And how much of that have we spent on high-quality urban transport? And we want to build urban competitive cities. We need to change that policy. And we need to integrate all of this into urban policies. I talked about middle income trap. As you know, many countries have come into $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 and been struggling to get into high income. But other countries have just sailed through and within 10, 15 years reached high incomes. Now there are many, many fiscal and many other reasons, technological reasons. But there is also a transportation contribution. Increasing personal incomes changes lifestyles, higher mobility, we demand more road space. And if we cannot provide that, and that's not necessarily money, very often it is land, then the external losses created by that increase, and that's currently 12% in the Western province. And then the economic growth slows down, and the mobility slows down, and the external costs increase until your growth slows down. And then you continue to be a middle-income country for many years. So we need to change this with transport policy. Transport policy perennially has been tax the vehicles, subsidize public transport. Public investment is to build highways. This is the policy we've had since independence. And I say we need to get both public and private investment now. And we need to have heavy investment in public transport, not subsidies. We need to move from taxing vehicles to electronic road pricings to finance highways and even public transportation. So what should the government do now? First is that we must have a unified voice, that no more playing around with highways and all kinds of politically appeasing but misleading solutions that need to concentrate on public transportation. In fact, I don't think we have a choice in that. We need to have a plan. And I think we have one. The Ministry of Transport got JICA's assistance from 2013 to develop a plan. This was later reviewed by the University of Moratuwa, reviewed yet again by 2 international experts, and it is now available. It is available for immediate implementation. And I think we need to say, okay, let's implement this plan. If that needs to be realigned to megapolis, let's do that. But there is a plan now. We need political leadership. We need a champion who's willing to take the risk with public transportation. And I think that's going to be a key vacancy we need to fill. Somebody who can step in and be a living stone or Penelosa to take us forward. Funding. We heard repeatedly that we cannot depend only on public sector. We need to be able to develop projects where the private sector can come in as major players, not just for investment, but for operation as well. We need institutional realignment. Guido pointed out the case of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and the concentration of all of these and how it has made a difference. We need institutions that can deliver, not institutions that can deliver excuses. And for too long, transportation has been devolved, decentralized, and all what we've been doing is to actually sort out the minute day-to-day problems. When the modernization, the realignment, the repositioning of the transport system to meet the modern requirements of the people and the corporate business community are not being attended to by any of these institutions or the political leadership. And this is where we need to actually develop good processes of planning, of implementation. So these are the urgent steps governments must take. And I think we need to, as citizens, keep reminding the government of these. Now, there are many modes that we can choose. There are the cheaper modes that can take people to the city center, from BRT that was spoken about, the commuter railways, and increasingly to monorail, LRTs, and metros. Now, a BRT you can build for about 1 to 2 billion rupees a kilometer. Suburban railway development may be 2 to 3 billion rupees. When you get to monorail, you're looking at 5, 6, maybe 7 billion. And when you get to metro, as you can see here, it can be 10, 12, 30, even 40 billion a kilometer. The more expensive they are to build, the more expensive they are to operate, and the greater subsidies they will require. So we need to know what is the mode of transport that suits our affordability, that can also create the kind of city that we want to. So if you look at our corridors, this is the kind of passengers per hour that are being taken. So we really don't need metros or elevated railways along our corridors, and we can manage with BRT suburbs even by 2035. But the most important intervention in this Western province is the modernization of the bus system. Because whatever mass transport system we have, most of those trips begin with a bus trip. And if we lose the passenger at the door, we have lost the passenger for public transport. And this entire bus system that is chaotic now needs to be modernized. Actually, we need only half the buses that are on our roads, but they need to be modernized and connected to the IT system. And this cost 173 billion by my estimation for 5 years. Wow, what an investment. But when you look at the benefit, I have never seen 86% rate of return. But is this project sexy enough in research for government to talk about? We want to spend 173 billion rupees on bus improvement. No, let's talk about monorail or LRT or underground or expressways. This is what sells. I think we need to be smart to be informed that this is where it begins. There are many corridors where we can have bus rapid transit. We can have bus higher level of service, bus priorities. And I'm sure none of you or very few of you have heard of any of these things, where most of you must have heard about the 2.5 billion US dollars that is going to be spent on a monorail system or an elevated rail system. And these are the ones that somehow capture our headlines. So plans have been done for the different corridors, how they can be developed into an arterial system and over the 2025 and 2035. Taking the railway, there is the second best network development is for railway improvement, to develop it as a network, electrifying the 3 4 major lines into the city, and then later to develop it as a corridor over the next 20 years, not only for passengers, but also for freight movement. So all these studies have been done, the costing have been done, and I believe the ADB has already expressed their interest in studying this for future funding, which is of course good news. What about within the city? We cannot have new railway lines, we cannot widen our roads, we may not be able to run BRTs, and we may have a case for an elevated railway, maybe a small section, which can integrate into some of these new developments that are shown around, like the John Keel's development, where it is used as a people mover system within the city. These are terribly expensive, they will be expensive to operate, but given the type of people who will use these facilities, they should be affordable. Proposal for roads, we need to have a new policy that new roads will be prioritized for public transportation. Finally, we must not forget the softer side of city building and what transportation does. We need to talk about pedestrian facilities. We need to talk about cycleways. We need to talk about how we manage our parking, how we manage our three-wheelers, how we bring in IT to manage our transportation system, our fare collection system. And these need a lot of investment and a lot of planning. And finally, it is the softer side of transport that will give the finesse to the city, not necessarily the hard infrastructure. We need to have the hard infrastructure that is affordable, that can provide the capacities and the mobility that our city needs, but we also need to top it off with this kind of supporting transportation demand management systems, which would include electronic road pricing and also rationalizing our vehicle imports. So how much would all of this cost? According to our projections, for the next 20 years, it will cost us 1,623 billion rupees. Now, according to the estimates, about half of that can be sought from the private sector. So that means that we need to spend something like 44 billion rupees. Now that's a lot of money. But wait, no, it's not. Because even now, we are spending more than 200 billion rupees just on building highways. If you don't believe me, I think Mr. Nimal Chandrasiri will be there to correct me. And all we need is a fraction of that to get this system up and running that can lay the foundation for the future. I don't know why, but Gaini said this first, Guido said this, and I have no option, but that's my last slide. Penelosa said a lot of nice things, but why all of us had to choose this, I don't know. Maybe it is to keep reminding you that perhaps if you forget everything I've said, maybe this is what you should take back. That we need to have a fundamental mindset change. It's a paradigm change that we have to look at, that public transportation is the key forward. That's not to say that we must stop buying cars. A lot of European cities have cars, not one, two in the family, but they prefer to use public transport. And I think that's where we need to get to. Thank you.
Now let's listen to Mangal about a sexy transport system. Hopefully.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a proud privilege for me to be here in this learned panel and to be able to put my little knowledge in front of you to consider what the future city of Colombo that we are going to build, a globally competitive city, and what Hitachi can do for such kind of future aspiration and the vision of this city. I would just, before I proceed and share, I think few comments I would like to make that public transport, yes, we all need to move to a public transport, but what we need is a multimodal integrated system which not only has high capacity metros or the monorails, elevated railway, BRT, but also pedestrians, people able to use bicycles and seamlessly move from point A to point B using these multimodal transport systems. So I think we need all of them, but what is the right timing? When can we invest into more expensive system? I think that is the call we have to take. Are we ready for that? Have we sweated all the assets that we have already created? I think not. We need to sweat the assets which are already in place, the buses. I think what I heard is that we have a large number of buses, but they are not being properly coordinated and run in a planned manner. So there is an opportunity for low-hanging fruits. So why don't we do that? And then once we have organized the use of this BRT, we can move on to the next stage and then to the higher capacity as we progress. But we need to plan that today. We need to plan that today. I think I also heard that JICA had undertaken this study and they had prepared a very comprehensive plan looking at the future requirement up to 2035. And they have outlined all these modes of transport. And amongst that, I'm going to talk about the monorail, how Hitachi believes that monorail is one of the system which is attractive, which is efficient, and which is sustainable. So to summarize, that we need definitely a comprehensive and integrated transport solution to meet the mobility needs and expectation of the people, not only for the immediate, but medium term, long term, in an affordable and time-bound manner. And we need to keep, I think what we heard since yesterday, that the socio-economic and environmental and safety aspect of Colombo city into mind when we implement these kind of systems. We need to plan for it. We need to organize financing to implement these solutions. And once we have constructed and implemented, we need the right kind of operators to operate and keep them in the right way so that the larger public is able to use these kind of systems. So when we look at different options that we have, we all saw this slide in the previous presentation. Two key things: the capacity of the particular system and how fast you can make your trip, and that means the scheduled speed. It's not the maximum speed, it's not the minimum speed, it's the speed at which you will finally complete your trip. So when we put all these together, we see that we have systems like BRT, we have the AGT and the monorail. As the capacity goes up, we have these systems to take care and keeping in mind the scheduled speed and the trip time. So I thought, let me put, the high capacity systems such as monorail and the metro system, which has been talked about a lot, in context and see how do they compare. So when we look at the monorail, it's a rubber tire system. You have a train which consists of 2 to almost 8 cars put together to form a train. And on the other hand, you have a metro system which is either rubber tire or steel wheel, more so on the steel wheel. And this can be run on an elevated viaduct or underground. And it can be taking from 2 or 3 cars all the way to 12 to 15 cars. So you can have a much larger train carrying larger number of people at one point of time, therefore having a capacity of the tune of 20 to 75,000 depending on what kind of frequency at which you can run these trains over the network, which is decided by the technology of signaling system that is incorporated. Whereas on the monorail system, you can have a capacity almost from 10,000 to 30,000 if you put all these technologies together and create a complete system using the most efficient, environment-friendly power system, that is the electricity, In a monorail, you use 750 volt DC or 1500 volt DC from the third rail, or on a metro system, you generally use 1500 volt DC overhead system or 25 kV AC. Whereas a monorail system is very agile in the sense that it can get into the city's contours and be able to maneuver on the roads along which you can lay it, therefore aligning to sharp curves like 50 meters of curve. It can negotiate curves as tight as 50 meters, whereas a metro system is designed for more smoother kind of alignments, which can negotiate 200 meters of curve. And a monorail can take steep gradients as high as 6% because of its agility, whereas the metro system is designed for 3 to 4% maximum gradient kind of alignment. In the capex, if you look at the cost, this is a ballpark number. Of course, the devil lies in the details, but if you look at this high level cost, a monorail system can be constructed if the land is available in the cost of around 30 to 35 million USD per kilometer, whereas a metro system can be starting from 45 and it can go to 65 or even beyond, depending on how much of underground and elevated mix you want to set up in the city. More so on the monorail system, as I talked about from the Hitachi side, we offer straddle type monorail system, which needs a track for one side. You need a spatial arrangement of 850 meters. And if you have two spatial systems, then you need to put them on a 3.7 meter distance. And to run a train of 4-car train with a length of 60 meters, you need a platform length of 65 meters because that will determine the civil cost and the construction cost. But on the other hand, you have a rolling stock of the train, which is lightweight aluminum using the latest technology. It's air conditioned. It's wide enough to carry 200 persons on a 6-person per square meter capacity in a typical public transport system per car. Therefore, in a 3 or 4 car, you have 600 to 800 people at a time traveling. And this used the most efficient traction system, which is very energy efficient and green. And together with the latest state-of-the-art communication-based train control system, so use the latest digital technology in order to make it safe, make it more reliable, and make it more operational friendly using automatic train protection, automatic train operation, and also having a central control system. Therefore, this system can be a real modern, efficient, agile, and meeting the demands of today and also for the future, because these trains not only run to meet today's capacity, but can also be augmented, increased in length if we plan it that way to address the future needs. But if, let's say, we were to look at between a monorail system, which is elevated, and the elevated metro, you would see very clearly that on the road alignment on which these two systems will come, the one system versus the other, you will have at least visual impact. A monorail system is much better in terms of the light system that the entire civilization along the road will have. It is much easier to construct because you can have precast beams which can be brought at a time when it is these spaces are less congested and constructed overnight, and then precast it in the daytime at the off-site yards. And therefore, it takes much lower effort, much minimal interruption on the road to put this kind of a system compared to a fully elevated metro system in a city like Colombo. Just to give you a snapshot, how this system will look like. This is, I would say, a very attractive system, and I'm sure whether it's a low income or the middle income or the higher middle income, everybody will like to use this system because it's very attractive, it's comfortable, and I'm sure it will be affordable uh, for the across the society in Colombo and in the megapolis that we are going to talk about, that will be created as the most competitive city. So these are few highlights of how this technology is implemented in various challenging landscapes, over the road median, over the canals, over the rivers, over an existing road, which has some space on its sides. So it can use different space that is available with minimal land acquisition requirement and with minimal time to start this construction on the given footprint that is available. It can also, as the characteristics of this system is, it can take higher gradients. Therefore, it can also be used in a hilly terrain, which I don't think is a requirement here. And it can also be along the shoreline. We can, think that meeting the the contours of Colombo city, if there is anything close to the shoreline, and of course over the flyovers. If we already have some existing highways and flyovers, it can go over them because it can climb those kind of gradients. Therefore, it suits to variety of terrain in a city to meet those difficult, challenging land and space requirements. In terms of aesthetics and appearance, so when we talk about creating a beautiful city, attractive city, I think the design that we incorporate into these trains, into the rolling stock, I think gels well, and these designs can also be created together with the discussion with the citizens, with the government, with the users. Therefore, every city can have its own signature style, the way the rolling stock can be designed, and we manufacture these rolling stock along these lines, along these designs. We talked about the difference between a metro system and a monorail system. So just to highlight that a monorail system uses a rubber tire bogie system, and that means not only it has high power to carry a much bigger concentrated load, but also it provides much better ride comfort, much in terms of noise insulation inside and outside, it is much better. It will not cause much of a noise problem in the cities where the people are living very close to this kind of system. So therefore, it is almost like an ideal system that from the bouquet of system that is available. In addition to its energy efficiency, the aluminum car that we talk about, the train that is made of, is lightweight. It has a technology which itself leads to insulation of noise and heat, and the material is recyclable. So we are talking about sustainability in terms of construction and in terms of operation of these monorail systems. Now, this is a snapshot which I have taken from the JICA study, which I heard has been proposed to the government, and the other institutions have taken a look at it. And in one of the recommendation is to set up in the older part of city the monorail where the land is not so available and the roads are very congested. So if you really look at the ground reality in terms of the alignment, insufficient road network, road cannot be widened or there is no space available, there is a narrow right of way. Second, the sharp curves and grades, the right of way along the median of the road will mean sharp curves and in certain places steep grades, and the carrying capacity that is forecasted for 2020 and 2035. So if you keep these two in mind, I believe the monorail system as recommended is quite suitable for meeting one of the modes of transport for a multimodal integrated transport system in Colombo. Now, so when we have decided that we want to construct, so I just want to share that this system can be constructed in the shortest time frame, within 30 months from the time the go-ahead is given and the start of operations. So we have different ways of transferring this technology from Japan, where it has been extensively used. Japan has its own terrain issues, own environmental issues, such as the earthquake, whereas Colombo has its own. So we do this kind of technology transfer very efficiently and adapt it to the local requirement. Just to share with you that it has a very impressive safety record in the projects that has been delivered worldwide with 0 personal injury record. And this is Hitachi technology, not only in Japan, but also in Singapore, in Dubai. And we will be very proud to, bring this technology and gel well with the future vision of a globally competitive city. These are certain details. I will not go into these details, and if you want to get into details, I think this presentation is available online, and if there are any questions, we can talk about it. But just to share the example of Tokyo monorail, yes, Tokyo has 2 monorail system, and one of them is which is connecting the central part of Tokyo to the airport. But as I said, this is one part amongst the integrated multimodal transport system, and it is working very well. And from the time it was commissioned in 1965, the trains used to run at 8 minutes headway. Now the trains are running at 2.5 minutes headway. So it's very flexible, very agile, attractive, lesser noise, all those kind of benefits. And we have a very good example here. So in my summary, I would say that monorail, amongst all the systems that we want to have in the integrated, plays a crucial role, and we should definitely take a look at it. And it meets all the socio-economic affordability. Yes, it may not be one of the most cheapest form of transport, but yes, it could be an affordable based on the value that it will create to the land and how you capture that value into the system and use it for cross subsidization. So with that, thank you very much.
LBR LBO Infrastructure Summit 2015, making Colombo a globally competitive city. Sponsors:
At HSBC, we understand when it's your business. It's never just business.
Airline Partner.
Welcome aboard a new beginning. Sri Lankan Airlines, you're our world.
LBR LBO Infrastructure Summit 2015.
Transportation is a hotly debated topic. I mean, it's very dear to our hearts. City's character is defined by the public transportation infrastructure that we have. If you want to have an efficient and effective transportation system, it will certainly positively contribute to the global competitiveness of Colombo in our vision to drive that way. Now, my first question is for Gunurwan, right? We heard a lot about different transportation systems that we need to adopt. Is monorail a panacea for all our transportation problems in this country?
Well, thank you, Gaini. Personally, from an economic viewpoint, my opinion is that the country should go for the most appropriate technology where the public funds would be utilized to derive the maximum benefit cost ratios. So I recommend if X technology or Y technology is the best in that opinion, let's go for that. If I remember right, the master plan study upgraded by Professor Kumarage and Moroto University evaluated at least 3 alternatives for each corridor. The Kandy corridor, Gaul Road corridor, Nigambu corridor, high level corridor, Malabe corridor and all. And none of those corridors had monorail coming as the first priority or even the second priority. For example, in the Gaul Road corridor, they had BRT as the first priority. The Nigambu corridor, they had the railway electrification as the best priority. And if I remember right, Malabe corridor had the railway electrification coming as second to bus priority, if I remember right. So when we have 2 economically advantageous alternatives, why looking for a third alternative? Given priority is a question for me. But I still don't have any objection. If monorail is so attractive, financially viable, financially attractive, maybe we can give Hitachi the license to come up and have a monorail run here and earn money and recover his investment. So it can be a very well privately financed transport system. And then we can see whether it is going to be attractive for the country in that economically attractive way. When we are trying to spend the public transportation drive through public funds, the government has to be vigilant, because if we don't spend it sparingly and with the due diligence, we may be wasting our money. So maybe we can discuss. Thank you.
Ramesh, would you like to give your thoughts on that?
I'm not an expert on monorails or BRT systems, but I think there's a common thread that has gone through today, as well as even previously, in that whilst a lot of factors have been identified, what really is common is that political will really stands at the apex of where we must begin. Both Guido talked about it in his list of 12 items of what needs to get done, the dozen things he talked about. Amal said about a political champion. Public spending, it really depends on the political agenda. And without that, I think we're really chasing rainbows here. And people have to realize that unless what is politically unpalatable today is championed by politicians who have standing, none of the things like the single transport authority, the highly unproductive three-wheelers, school transport vans, private bus systems, these are not going to change, because all of these have at the base a bank of voters whom the politician depends on to come, every 5 years. So I think it is imperative, and to use a rather crude analogy to what Guido said about the circulation system. There's a popular internet joke that talks about primacy of organs. Transportation has always been the grungier side of business, the dirtier side of, it's not a sexy business. It's not investment banking. It's not property development. It's not any of these, hotels. But, if it ceases and if it closes, it is very similar to your digestive system closing. I mean, everything else goes to pot. So I would really list political will and the desire to champion this as really most important.
So we heard a lot about different cities having different types of transportation systems. Guido, this question is for you. I mean, you said 2 types, there are countries who have really, messed up their plan, and then later on they learn from their failures and then, come out of it, right? What country or city or cities transportation system in full or part that we should emulate in Sri Lanka, in your opinion, to make Colombo a globally competitive city?
Well, I have already talked about organization. So we can learn first from cities who have organized, learn from cities who introduced these transport authorities. But if you come to cities, it's just, as I said, that in Colombo is Colombo. So I think the transport system is also always suited to the urban environment. It has to be suited. So there's not one model. But there are a number of cities doing well. We have seen how the cities of Bogota and Medellin, which had really a transport system falling apart with minibuses and low quality, was really systems which were transformed. We can learn from, I come up with a little bit exotic examples, but that gives maybe a better idea than I say, oh, go to London and copy the system from London. That doesn't make sense. The example from Panama City. The mayor of Panama City said 5 years ago, if you elect me as a mayor, I built you a metro system in 4 years. And all the people who were fed up with the transport system, they voted for him. And 9 months later, they started with building the metro. And just before the new elections 4 years later, this metro was opened. It can be in the Guinness record of book of records. It was done in 4 years in implementation. So there are examples. 3 weeks ago, we had the opening of the light rail half metro system in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Buy a ticket and has a look how they did it in 3 years. If they can do it, you certainly can do it. No doubt about that. So there are a lot of cities you can learn. I can, of course, say, well, look at the brilliant systems in Switzerland and France and Holland. Welcome to come to Europe. So there are many cities you can learn from. They have excellent cities, but it's not so much the technology. About the monorail, I think many of them, or among us as transport specialists, are so about it, because it's not. I will not say that it's not a good transport system. Definitely not, because it's a. But if it would be a really advantageous system, why then there is no monorail system to find in any of the European cities? So that was actually my question. But there are reasons maybe to do it about space. But I fully agree. A good economic analysis should show, and it's about value for money. What is the best system? And it can be an LRT, it can be a metro, it can be a monorail. But these investments are for the next 50 years. Jakarta started in 2004 with the PPP on monorail. It's 2015. The only thing I have seen is a few pillars in the middle of the road, and the project is cancelled. So you have to be clear that things are going to happen.
Really key. Yeah, Professor Kumarge, now we developed a Colombo Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and now Megapolis vision is evolving. So what are the elements that you need to specifically look at in the new scheme of things in the previous plan, so that we will get it executed in a more meaningful manner?
Certainly, as has been pointed out, the land use and the transportation integration has to be perfect, particularly now since transport is a constraint and we cannot get at the land use that is required for the future unless we provide the right transportation services in the right place, at the right cost, at the right time to bring that change. That transition also may have to be driven by the right transportation system. So I think while the urban planners need to be working on the structure plan there also has to be a process where the transportation master plan that has actually been evolved over 2 years, including a host of experts from different countries, is dovetailed into this, because part of the structure plan itself may be restricted by what the transportation system can offer, particularly in the short term. So I think that process needs to work together. And I don't think we can have a plan that is sustainable and viable unless that process happens. It may also go back to the previous session where it was talked about, I think, the micro level, why plans fail. And this plan also can fail. Even the transport plan can fail unless there is a bottom-up approach also. A lot of planning is top-down. It's done by the experts, it's done by the policymakers, and it is revealed to the public, for their public consumption. And very often we are thankful that there is some plan, and we forget about it thereafter. But I think most cities that have succeeded have actually consulted the bottom-up approach, the micro level, the business community, the social issues, the academics, different groups who all need the transportation to enhance and enrich their lives. Because it's a whole city that needs to be benefited, not just one community or another. So I think this process must begin, both for the megapolis plan and for the transportation plan. It must be owned not by a committee or by a minister or by a government. It must be owned by the people.
Okay, Mr. Nimasavi, we have a huge congestion and traffic is a big problem for us. On the part of our RDA now, if you really look at the traffic light system, we've invested a lot, and then during peak time, police override that, and then they do their own thing. Now, on the part of RDA, because you're the only person representing the panel from the government side. So, on the part of RDA, what are the measures you can do to dynamically manage this situation? How can you really contribute to improving the current situation, because that is a huge problem for the commuters?
Well, Gania, RDA is carrying only for A and B class roads, and congestion you are referring to is mostly confined to Colombo metropolitan region area, and maybe just beyond that, which mostly belongs to the Colombo Municipal Council. But having said that, yes, it's a sort of a public problem. So the RDA, what we have been doing up to now, being a sort of a road authority, we have been trying to match the demand with the increasing capacity of the road, which, as rightly pointed out, has a limit, especially in a country like ours where the land is limited. So it has come to almost to a point where in the urban areas, it's very, very difficult to acquire private land. It's financially difficult, and it's socially difficult. Socially more so, I would say now. So we are coming to a position where it's not viable to go for acquisition of private properties. But if that is the case, then of course we have to look at the solution outside the traditional solution which we have been adopting. So if we cannot increase the capacity by widening the road, as a road highway and bridge engineer, I would say, okay, we have to either go up or below within the right of way, which involves a lot of cost. Then it becomes an economic problem and all that. So as Gunarwan said and Amal said, I think that we have to look at all these possibilities of going for tunneling, going for monorail, going for elevated, going for LRTs, MRTs, and all that depending on the demand and our projections and measures we supposed to or we should take in controlling this growth rate of this demand. Otherwise, I think it will be very, very difficult to go for whatever the solution, because if we cannot control it, the vehicle population, we have big problems. That's where I think the public transport comes into the picture. I think when it comes to public transport, these other people are more competent in talking about public transport. I'm just a builder. But what I can say is even public transport, if you are going to improve it, even for BRT or even for whatever the solution, if you are thinking about large-scale acquisition in urban areas, it will be very, very difficult. So I think in doing the economic analysis, this factor of constructability and whether the land availability should come into the picture, and that's where again we go back to what we have been hearing: the land and transport and highways, all this should come together under one sort of authority so that these decisions can be taken without spending time.
There is one question directly to you, Mr. Chandrasiri, from the audience. Are there any plans to remove the flyovers in Nugegoda and Dehiwala junctions, as they have made traffic congestion much worse than before they were built? Not to mention there are 2 disasters waiting to happen. Would you like to go?
Yes and no. We have found that in Nugegoda there is some sort of easiness of traffic due to the flyover, whereas it's not the same at Dehiwala for a very simple reason. Nugegoda, we acquired an additional land acquisition, and we found it very, very hard to do that in Dehiwala. So we couldn't do that at Dehiwala. So there was no additional widening even after putting the flyover. So flyover itself is not going to help. I think everybody accepts that. You are removing this congestion and then putting it somewhere else. Unless, of course, you improve the junction along with it. So Dehiwala, we couldn't do that. And in fact, there was one proposed to Panadura. Both of us are from Panadura. And both of us vehemently opposed that. And it was taken out. And that's the one which appears now leading to Jaffna on Mena Punarian Road. So if you find that it's really it's becoming a nuisance by itself, then we will remove it. But at the moment, yes, there are problems with Dehiwala. Some good things in Nugegoda, but we should not forget that it's not just because of the flyover. The flyover may not have contributed to it. If flyover is not there, probably the situation may have been maybe worse. But if you find that we have to do some improvement and then we have to remove it, I think then we will decide to do that.
Yeah, before I take on audience questions, I would put one question back to you, especially on the monorail part of it. Mangal, you are a strong advocate of monorail, but what are the countries, your scale, you have a monorail, what are the countries who have successfully implemented a similar nature in Sri Lanka? What are the learnings that we can get from them, You didn't have much time to talk about it.
Let me first clarify that I am not a great proponent of only monorail. I am a proponent of multimodal, integrated, seamless transport system. And every city has its own signature. What kind of system, multimodal system will be required to cater to the specific need of that particular city. Monorail is a very niche solution. So you will not find the solution across the globe in every city or in large number of cities, because you could take multiple other measures to integrate other systems which are more suited to those cities. But to talk about where all these systems are, this system actually originated from Japan. So if you see, most of the Japanese cities have monorail system. Outside Japan, the system is in China. It's already being used as a wide application in terms as a mass rapid transport system. It is being integrated with metros, the BRTs, etc. This system is also being used in Korea. The first line just got inaugurated a few months back. The system is also used as a very niche and very specific application in Dubai and Singapore. But primarily talking about, since it originated from Japan, the reach of Japanese technology has been very, I would say, in the Asia Pacific region only, not beyond that. Therefore, this system, I would say, has not, been widely used elsewhere. But my final says that, you need a multimodal integrated transport system, and monorail is not the only requirement.
Srikanth, you were very quiet. So how can we build technology into making Colombo a globally competitive city? Would you like to specify some examples also, regionally similar to us?
Sure. I mean, in the context of smart cities, or as we call it, City Next, there is always a technology aspect, but it's a question of sequencing. If you look at the implementation of smart transport, or ITS as it's called, intelligent transport, it's a function of where it's being deployed. If you look at the developed countries, I think the connotation is kind of, since they've been deploying this over the last couple of decades, the connotation has moved towards more a public safety aspect. So if you look at the US, especially post 9/11, most of the ITS implementations we've seen the last few years have been, being implemented hand in hand with the Homeland Security system. So that's more pivoted around surveillance, is more pivoted around emergency response. The pivot points are very different. It's more around mass evacuation in case of an emergency and so on and so forth. But if you look at what happens in developing countries, the pivot points are obviously very different. And that's exactly what I think the panel has been discussing the last 15, 20 minutes. And most of the presentations are pivoted around what happens in developing economies. So that is one aspect. The other aspect, again, is greenfield versus augmenting existing transportation systems. In greenfield, obviously, the approach is very different. You start from scratch. We've seen some of these greenfield implementations in China, largely speaking. Colombo seems to be more along the lines of augmenting existing systems. So for us, if I were to kind of cite an example of what we did in Auckland, again, to the point of the keynote speaker, Auckland had 8 different transportation agencies. I think the first thing they did was consolidate that into one. So that became the single transportation authority, which took care of railways, roadways, ferries, bikeways, and even walkways. So there was one consolidation, and that consolidation brought in aspects of efficiency and decreasing operational cost. So where we were involved from the point of view of trying to kind of integrate the back end, consolidate the back end, consolidate the supporting systems. So that was all from the point of view of increasing efficiency. But if you look at how it impacts the citizens, again, I think one of the speakers alluded to mobile applications and what have you. So again, I'm going to cite Auckland. Auckland has something called My Street, which is a citizens, communication, bi-directional communication with the transport authority. So citizens can kind of register complaints, potholes, or whatever it is. That's one aspect. The other aspect is citizens can set up their own account in the transportation system. So, aspects of e-wallet, topping up e-wallets, having personal routing, information, and then getting information, push information onto the smartphones about in case there's a train line or a bus lane that is down because of maintenance, then automatic rerouting suggestions and so on and so forth. The other aspect is social listening. Again, one of the speakers just spoke about, taking inputs from grounds up. So what they also do is they take, citizens' inputs, which in today social listening is a very, very commonly used technology, whether it's Facebook or whether it's Twitter. So you take inputs from, the citizens' grounds up, and then of course you form a, specialist panel. You have experts who come into the panel, but those experts are not, they're not evolving plans in isolation with regards to what's going to, what they're going to roll out. So these are some of the things that technology plays a role. The other area also is, again, with regards to bus transportation, if you look at Auckland, they have about 4 terabytes of operational data. So they use that data and then basically glean intelligence from that data to see how to kind of basically manage fleets, which routes are profitable, which routes are being more used by citizens, and basically bus routing, routing or rerouting, also from the point of view of fleet maintenance. So some of these aspects is where technology plays a role, but it's both citizens facing, which is some of the examples I gave, and it's also the back end where you kind of tighten up the back end from an efficiency and operation standpoint.
Okay. Thank you. I think we spoke a lot about commuter transport, but I think Romesh, how do you foresee this envisaged development going to impinge on the freight transportation network in Colombo? I think that is important because we are highly import-dependent economy.
Yes, I think getting moving the lorries off the roads, particularly during peak hours, has been addressed a lot. And if you take Colombo's aspiration from a hub point of view, certainly getting the container traffic off the roads is a key issue, and there have been multiple proposals over the years. But moving traffic away from plying, the port is in the heart of the city, getting it away from coming in and out of the port at whatever time, peak or otherwise, is important. And using some of the suggestions, the proposals earlier to have integrated depots, northern and southern depots in Colombo, are very important. And also planning our distribution systems in terms of the vegetables, the fresh produce coming in. People must be encouraged. Markets need to move out. Distribution must improve. So I think everything, that the huge influx of cars has overshadowed everything else. All the other issues have paled into insignificance, particularly over the last few months, where we've seen chock-a-block roads. But yes, it does need addressing as well, and there are plans. I think implementation is key again. Land acquisition is a problem for that as well. And efficient use of rail. We've just allowed rail to go to nothing in terms of freight transport. Whereas 100 years ago, 99% of our tea moved down from railheads into Colombo. Railheads in the upcountry into Colombo. Nothing happens today.
Yeah, I think it's ideal. Now it brings me to this audience question for Dr. Gunaruwan. Why have successive governments been unable to harness the full potential of our railway system for passenger and freight operations? Is it lack of policy direction and/or inability to mobilize funding?
I think it's mostly the lack of policy initiatives by the side of the government, and also not taking prompt action to keep pace of railways development. Both are contributing to this end. If I'm to answer, give an elaborate answer, it will take time. Let me give one very, very important point which has kept the railway down, an economic policy factor, which is unfavorable treatment by policy given to the railway sector in this country. Railway department is compelled to balance the budget in the railway. So they say the railway has to earn its expenditure. So whenever there is a gap, obviously there is a gap, big gap between the revenue and expenditure, the policymakers go and say railway is a monster eating into public coffers. So whenever there is public fund shortage, railway funds are cut. But having said that, on the other hand, railway is asked to compete with the road for the traffic. So bowsers, truckers, container carriers are using the road space. But that road space is provided by Mr. Nimal Chandrasri free of charge for the bowsers, truckers and the road space. And we are not charging the road user charge from any of those. So what is the logic here? If railway is to make it a viable entity, they have to inbuild into their tariff the track maintenance cost, stations, signals, color lights, and also the railroad crossing. Rail gate is also burden of the railway department. Whereas the trucker, the bowser and the container carrier is freely using the space maintained by the RDA, and then we can't compete. It's a policy issue which the policymakers will have to address. Either they have to charge the correct price as a toll from the road transporter, or they've got to make another entity called Railroad Development Authority and don't question profitability of that. Because no one is questioning the profitability of RDA. So likewise, you create another entity, Railroad Development Authority, and maintain the railway track signaling and all free of charge. And then you ask the railway department, okay, you run trains, compete with the trucker, and I will guarantee you, railway will do a very good competition, give a very good competition on the bowser industry. provided that for short haulage, when you have double handling, when the distances are short, true, there is a problem. At least for the long distance. At least for the petroleum terminal stations, which are located just at the railway head. Only 30% to 40% of the petroleum bulk transport is done in this country by railway. All are moved on the road. Because the Bowser can give a better price to the petroleum corporation than the railway department if railway is to earn a margin on petroleum transportation. This is very bad. So I just gave you one example, and there are many more examples that you can take. I think there was a question, let me answer that also because the question was asked. Now we were discussing about different investments. As far as I'm concerned, a railway track can be constructed in this country less than $1 million a kilometer. $1 million a kilometer is the cost as far as I'm concerned. But if you talk about the recently done projects by Indians and Chinese, you can do it easily at $2.5 million a kilometer. Because the Northern Railway tracks, the average cost came to about 2.5. And the railway department's construction of the tracks was just less than $1 million a kilometer. And the part that we did to Omanta was just $500,000 a kilometer. Still the trains run at 100 kilometers per hour on that. But the highways cost us $7 million a kilometer. So 7 times a highway. And even if you talk about dual carriage railway, you could do it within, say, $1.5 million. Even if you go for electrified railway, the estimates made in this presentation by Professor Amal Kumarage, it's less than $1 billion a kilometer. Whereas the monorail is $35 million a kilometer. Now, unfortunately, what is yes for those fancy projects is no for railway, because railway is considered the poor man's transport. Unfortunately, the priority, policy priority, investment priority is not given for railway in this country. And fortunately, this time, the master plan prepared addresses the question of Colombo-Battaramulla corridor. Only 2% encroachment is there. The trace is available. You can do a dual carriage railway to Battaramulla, which can be completed in no time if the government is giving the green light. Feasibility, pre-feasibility is done, feasibility is up, ADB is willing to finance. So hope that these projects will go through. Then Ramesh was talking about moving the containers out of the road. Only way is railway. The proposal has been sitting for the past 4 or 5 years at various places for the construction of the ICD, Internal Container Depot, where the containers from port will be carried directly by rail to an outskirt place in Colombo, and then thereafter you can take it by railway or roadway by whichever the means. Only those containers which were to come into the center of the city of Colombo will be permitted by the city roads to come to Colombo. Nothing happened on that. So many more proposals like the railway electrification, the first cabinet paper went when I was the general manager railway in 2008. And another cabinet paper went 3 months ago for the same thing. So another 5 years down the line, maybe we will send another cabinet paper asking for permission again. So if you go that way, you may have thousands of plans. If those are not implemented, there is hardly anything that can be done. I think we are making 2 big mistakes in this country. One, we are making the wrong choice of mode. We are always going for expensive modes. We are going for more capital intensive modes, forgetting about the affordability to the public coffers. So the mode is discussed and nothing is happening. And also there is apparent interest to go for high capital costings. I don't know for why. When the projects are expensive, it appears the money is coming somehow. That is the first mistake we do. And the second mistake we do is, we consider transport, and Professor Kumarage also very clearly said, we consider transport 15% GDP, 10% GDP is unbearable. True enough. Because what is our transport? More we transport, more we create business for India, China, and Arab. You burn fuel, you import material, and you import vehicles, and you run. What have we developed as an industry on transportation? Other than these small, garages. We don't have transport-based development of industry in this country. We have not pushed the economy by transport sector. We have only shouldered the burden of mobility of the economy by transportation. Even the things that we have been doing in the past 450 years in the railway, now the Indians and Chinese are coming and doing at 5%, 5 times the cost. So where is the local private sector? Where is the local professional engineering bodies? Where is the business chambers? Why aren't we creating a railway-based, transport-based industry? Until that happens, always the transport sector is going to be a burden for us. Because we will be burning fuel, we will be giving business to foreign companies, we will not be adding anything to the GDP of the country by transport sector's pull.
Okay, thank you.
So we are making these two wrong decisions.
Thank you.
I hope that this will be
I wish
clarified.
I had more time. I wish I had more time. I think so many questions coming from the audience, but in the interest of time, I don't think. But one last question to Professor Kumarge. Now we have grand plans. Now what we really need to do is the execution. So we must get it right this time, right? So what is it that we need to do, 2 or 3 things that you feel, apart from what you mentioned, immediately what we can do to make it happen this time, first time, right?
Yeah, I think this is the last time we have to recover and plan our city for the future. In Sri Lanka, only Colombo can be a globally competitive city. Take any other country other than the Maldives in our region, they have many cities. They can make a couple of mistakes and still have another city or two to survive. We have no such chance. We have no second chance. We have messed it up completely, continuously up till now. So the record is not good. So, so we had to realize that. We had to do something differently here. And I think, as I ended my presentation, I think the key is public partnership, public ownership. As long as those who matter sit back and blame government and politicians and say, you messed it up, I think that's going to happen. I think somebody mentioned about the three-wheelers, and yeah, we have several 100,000 of them here. But what is our perception? No, the politicians can't touch them because they are a political clout. The buses cannot be touched because they are political clout. But wait a minute. I mean, these vehicles are there to serve 5 million people in this province. Don't their votes count? So we need politicians who will see beyond the few votes that the three-wheelers and the buses bring to the people who will actually receive a better service and be willing to take that challenge forward. And I think it's a conception, the perception that we have that these cannot be touched. And I think all these systems, we have to actually be willing to take them on and change. It doesn't mean that they are throwing them out. They have to be repositioned. They have to be retrained. They have to be re-technoed, I don't know for a better word, to bring them into 21st. I mean, we have 8,000 buses in this province, twice the number we need. We have three-wheelers for 1 we need. School buses, taxis, trucks, at least 100% more than what we need. So you talk about an inefficient industry in Sri Lanka, that's transport. So are we going to continue this? I mean, everybody is happy to add on the cost of that and pass it on to the consumer. How much is a three-wheeler ride in India? 5 kilometers, you can go for maybe 20 Indian rupees. And here, he won't budge for that amount.
Yeah.
So I mean, we need to go there. Secondly, we need to be very smart about the decisions we make. And Dr. Gunaruan very eloquently put it, right? I mean, as always the case, we have supplier-driven proposals. We have investor-driven proposals. We have business-driven proposals. That's fine. We need to get there. We have to make choices on technology. We have to find business and investors. But that should not be the starting block. The starting block should be what the public want, what the country wants, what is good for us. So let's not put the cart before the horse. And finally, I think we must not be driven by short-term goals. A lot of people will even talk to me at lunch and say, so, Professor, how can we solve this congestion issue? So as long as there's no congestion, we feel there's no problem. No. We'll be thankful that there's congestion, because that is why I'm sure Lakshman has put us on this panel here.
Yeah.
If not for that, we'll be still sitting here and creating a problem that will be harder to solve in another 5 years' time.
So let's hope sanity prevails in the powers that be and do it differently this time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lakshman.
So I don't know, take time of your lunch break. So thanks, everybody. Great speakers, great expertise. We were able to put together a wonderful panel. I said, so transportation is the largest problem. So we put together the heaviest expertise and the highest number of panelists on this. I'm not going to thank individually. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much, Guido, flying all the way, and Mangal joining us. And so it's Srikanth and our local expertise, Professor Kumarage, Ramesh, Dr. Gonuran, and Mr. Chandrasiri. Thank you so much, Yanni. Wonderful job. Thank you. 1:45, please put your hands. We'll be back at 1:45. Thank you.
LBR LBO Infrastructure Summit 2015.